Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our weekly webinar. We've opened up a couple of minutes early. We are expecting well over 100 people today, so we wanted to give everyone time to sign in. So if you could just bear with us. We are using Slido. Shall we put the Slido reference up on the screen, Abraham, so that while people are coming in, they can make a note of it? This is the Slido reference for today's meeting or today's webinar. Howard will be explaining what we're going to be doing with Slido in a few moments, but you might just like to register for that now, because there will be a survey, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A, there'll be a survey at the end and so on. So lots going on today. So if you want to get your mobile and just register for LM290121, which by now you'll have recognised is the date, and LM is Leaders Meets, in case you wondered. So there we are. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome along. We are expecting a lot of people today, so if you could just bear with us, we're going to give it another minute or so to allow people to sign in. Not quite 12 o'clock yet. And I see, Howard, you've put the link to the Slido poll in the chat box as well, folks. So if you want to go to it via the chat box, you can also find it in there. So lots of opportunities for the survey, and later on for Q&A and a final survey coming up. I've also got some exciting news for you, ladies and gents, which I'm going to share with you at the end of the presentation. I'm not going to steal my thunder now, but I'll give you some what I think is exciting news towards the end of the hour, which we hope will give you additional value from your attendance at these weekly webinars that we hold. So what do we make the time, Howard? Just after midday? Shall we give it another minute or two?
Yeah, give it one more minute. The people are still coming in.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll just give it another few more seconds, ladies and gents, and then we'll kick off, as you've taken the trouble to be here on time. We're still expecting quite a few more, but as I say, as you're here on time, we'll kick off in just about another 30 seconds, I think. So just bear with us. I'll have another sip of coffee. Well, Howard, I think we'll make a start.
Yep, great. Thanks, Andrew.
So good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Carpenter. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Chief Executive of the Structural Timber Association, but I also have a role within Constructing Excellence as Chief Executive in the Southwest and the Midlands. And the three organisations came together just under a year ago now to start these weekly webinars on a Friday, initially talking about COVID-19 issues, but since then we've broadened it, and we've now had well over 3,000 people watching in at some time during the last 10 months, which is really exciting. Since then, we've been joined by Constructing Excellence nationally, by CE Northeast and CE Wales, together with the CIOB in the Southwest. So we're an expanding group of bodies bringing you these weekly webinars. I'm delighted to say that today we've got with us Stewart Dalgarno. Stewart Dalgarno is a man I've worked with for 10 or 11 years in the structural timber sector. He is the project director for the AIMCH project, which you're going to hear about today. But his daytime job, as it were, is as a director of the Stewart Milne Group. So we're going to be hearing from Stewart first. But before we do, I'm going to hand over to Howard, who's going to give you a few of the house rules. Thanks, Howard.
Thanks, Andrew. Good afternoon to everyone. Yes, we're going to be using Slido this afternoon. For those of you new to it, You can either use it split screen, or if you've got a mobile, you can use it on your mobile in two ways. You can go to slido.com. When you go there, then you enter the hash LM290121, or you could use your QR reader. We're going to be using it in three ways today. Firstly, any questions you have, please use Slido. We can put it in there. And if you want to ask a question and you think someone else has asked something similar, you can rank the questions. So you can say yes, thumbs up to it, and that will push it up the order. Stewart is going to be giving a presentation, but there is a poll afterwards. So it'd be great to get maximum participation. So please do register. And at the end, we'll be asking you for a feedback poll. The feedback is really useful to us as it helps us to learn as to how we can improve things for the future. There is a chat availability on your screen. If you have chat, please do use it. You can say who you are, welcome to other people or whatever. But I think without any more ado, we'll get on. So I'm going to hand over.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Just to say, ladies and gents, that we're welcoming back Stewart. Stewart very kindly came and spoke for us. Must have been about, I reckon, 8 months ago now, Stewart, wasn't it? And I know a lot has happened since then, where the project has moved on. No pressure, Stewart, but you had the biggest audience for us last year, so that was another good reason for inviting you back. But we're all intrigued as to find out what's moved on since you last were with us. So I'm going to hand over to you, sir.
Thank you, Andrew. Hopefully everyone can see the slides okay. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's coming up okay for me. Should be for everyone. Thanks.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks, Andrew. No pressure, as you say. So my name is Stewart Dalgarno, Director of Product Development at Stewart Milne Group. I'm also the Project Director at AIMCH, which is an R&D consortium looking at the industrialisation of how we construct homes. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our journey. We're 2 years into a 3.5-year sort of project, and I'm going to run you through some of the outputs that are now emerging from the project. So a bit of background, the project's funded through Innovate UK through the Transforming Construction call. It was released about 2 years ago. It's a £6 million project. There's 4 industry partners, Stewart Milne Group, who's a timber frame and housing developer, Forster Group, who's a small roofing contractor and renewable specialist, Barratt Development, the largest developer in the UK, L&Q, the largest affordable developer in the UK, and our innovation partners, the Manufacturing Technology Centre and Construction Scotland Innovation. So quite a large group, diverse, covering Scotland and England, covering affordable and private, small companies, medium size and large ones as well. Our ambition is to deliver modern methods of construction using panelised offsite systems for the same price as masonry, and also having the bells and whistles of improving quality, faster, safer, robust. We see this being done across a number of work streams, focusing on digital working and standardisation, offsite manufacturing, assembly on sites, and supplying solutions for both the affordable and the private market for both low-rise housing and sort of medium-rise up to 4-storey apartments. We see this, the project's been looking at as because it's an innovation project, looking at steps. So the first 2 years we're really focusing on monitoring actual construction sites and looking at some of the trials of some of the new solutions we've been looking at automation in terms of being able to increase the output of the manufacturing of certain systems, and then through digitalization and standardization in the future and scaling up these solutions to become a more viable price point for the more advanced solutions you'll be looking at. And then looking at some future proofing over 5 years, looking at maybe hybrid systems or maybe more advanced systems that could become more viable in future years. We've got some real tangible benefits and some hard challenges, one of which is the price point. So MMC has never really broken through, other than maybe timber frame being very competitive against masonry. But for the more advanced MMC systems, whether that's a more advanced closed panel solution or other systems, typically they're more expensive. So our challenge is to see through the work we've been doing how we can commercialize those to achieve a price point that is the same or less than masonry construction, half the time to build compared to masonry, lower defects, and with more PMV, pre-manufactured value, i.e. more activity done in the factory and less done on the building site. So very challenging targets, and not least of which is the commercialization of the solutions. We are looking at near to market solutions. We are not looking at the more innovative, longer term solutions such as modular. Modular will have its place, I'm sure, in the MMC marketplace for different developments and typologies, but our focus is on panelized systems where there's a near to market scalable solution that can be delivered en masse. So we've actually built some homes already in the first couple of years. Our sites at Barrett's in Warrington and at L&Q at Milton Keynes have been trialing some of the advanced systems. So the image on the right hand side is a number of units being built with Barrett's using a closed panel, timber-based panelized system, fully insulated, airtight, windows fitted, chipboard clad cassettes, no scaffolding to erect the superstructure, a roof made on the ground, fully tiled and lifted on, and with plasterboard loaded in and stairs pre-fitted. So that unit on the right hand side was wind and watertight, accessible, safe, secure, fully insulated, roof tiled in just under 7 hours on that particular plot there. The images on the left are taken from some of the work being done at L&Q site in Milton Keynes. We looked at prefabricated foundations, systems, and we used closed panel systems for the superstructure, and we adopted a roof module. So you can see here the images showing the prefabricated roof modules brought down on the back of a lorry and then dropped onto units. I've actually got a video to show you the build process for this in a moment or two. What's interesting here is, and what's critical to the project, is we have been monitoring on real sites the activity on the site. So the labour, material and waste productivity levels. So we've been monitoring masonry sites, open panel timber frame, and these advanced system sites. So starting to get some data through that's going to inform the business case for where the benefits lie through actual time and motion studies on the site. So I mentioned I had a video there to show you. This is the site at L&Q at Milton Keynes, just showing you some of the technologies we've been trialing there, which are near to market, as I've suggested. These are closed panel systems with the windows and doors pre-fitted, and we have a single closed panel party wall solution with a fire protection pre-fitted. We're also looking at chipboard clad cassettes. So the walls, floors and walls of the two-storey house are built beforehand. You see the terrace units here. And in this particular trial, we engaged with specialist modular roofing company who pre-made the roofs, as you can see, tiled, fascia and soffit already in place, insulation in place, and we essentially craned the roof onto the main superstructure. We've looked at a number of different roof systems, traditional ground direct roof systems where the timber carcass is built and lifted on. That's quite doable and commercially very attractive. We've also looked at doing the same with felt and batten and lifting the roofs on so the roof is felt and battened. The Barrett's example was where we actually pre-tiled it and lifted it on, and the fourth option is on the video here, is essentially the modular system fully manufactured off-site and with a specialist zip-up detail to connect the two modules together. The rest of this year, we're doing further trials, including the use of scaffoldless erect systems. So we're not dependent on putting the four-storey, the four-sided scaffolding up on all of the building. We can actually build the superstructure without scaffolding, and in due course, then move to. Let's move that one back. So some interesting stuff just to see some visualizations. A number of different videos are available on our website, actually, which I'll come to at the end. Another part of the project is for Foster Roofing, who've been looking at pre-cutting roof tiles. So taking a digital survey of the roof module, converting that into a cutting list, and then processing the tiles through an innovative manufacturing process to have the tiles pre-cut and pre-marked. And then through augmented reality, the HoloLens type technology, placing the tiles onto the roof structure. So the benefit of this is about a 30% reduction in the labour activity is the target, and you remove silica dust from the cutting of concrete roof tile components on the building site, which is a known health and safety hazard. So they've been doing a lot of proof of concept work as a sort of lean construction system that's complementary to some of the roof systems that can be used through the AIMCH project. Going forward this year, we will be building a net zero carbon home. Barratt's have committed to do one in partnership with the University of Salford, and these will be built using a high performance fabric, a timber panelised system, using one of their standard house types, and then obviously connecting those into renewable solutions such as your PVs, your battery storage, your heat pump technology. This home will be monitored, so looking at obviously the as-built performance, looking at air quality, acoustic performance, insulation, U-value, SAP performance, etc., thermography. So that will be done towards the end of this year and gives us a bit of an eye towards what the likely challenges with net zero carbon will be against the context of looking at off-site manufactured solutions. In addition to that, we've been doing a lot of future factory work, so no point in developing the solutions if you can't make them. So scaling up solutions which are likely to be viable, such as closed panel systems. And to do that, we've been doing a lot of development of blueprints for future factories. So to support future investment from within the partners, and also to provide a platform for others to consider when they're looking at factory investments in the future. We've done mathematical modelling, which helps us to design and configure the factory, and through some of the car industry techniques called DES, discrete event simulation, effectively simulated the workflows through the factory of the different MMC products to be manufactured, and then turned that in through a Revit 3D visualization model of what a future factory will look like, both a manual sort of orientated factory, a pop-up factory, and a fully automated factory setup for MMC solutions. So working with a manufacturing technology centre, the home of British manufacturing, to look at the most cost-effective ways to manufacture MMC products that hopefully reduce cost and also increase output. We've also been looking at robotics, so being less labour dependent on the factory. Labour is an issue to getting people in the factory as much as getting them on a building site. So one of the things we've been focused on, for example, has been the fitting of windows. If you look at what Stewart Mill currently produce, about 8,000 homes a year, if we fitted 10 windows, which is on average the requirement for a home, that's 80,000 windows to be fitted in a factory. That would require us to fit a window in just under 2.5 minutes on a production line. Currently, that process employs 2 people, and it's a manual process in the main to lift and fit windows. So I'll show you a video in a bit of some of the robotic proof of concepts. So we've got the first robot solution where we can pick up a window and fit it in a hole, and we're looking to commercialise that solution with our technology partners as part of the investment in future factories. We're also looking at high-speed insulation lines And we're also looking at the robotic application of board materials, such as fire protection and or sheathing materials, so we can close the panels in quickly and efficiently and be less labour dependent, and therefore reduce our labour cost. It does mean we're increasing high value jobs, so we're bringing more engineering skills, making it a more attractive workplace to work in, and bringing in some of the technologies from the car industry where we can use transferable skills on it. So I mentioned one of the studies has been looking at windows. So you see two videos playing simultaneously here. One is the current process of fitting a window on a building site. So through the time and motion and productivity studies, we've been able to look at how quickly various different windows can be fitted and the problems associated with that. I'm sure you can all see the challenges around about manual handling, safety. Obviously, these windows are supplied, the timber frame supplied, and then the windows supplied. So two truck movements coming to site, and you've still got to offload the trucks. You've got to then handle the windows, get the windows to the plot, break up the plot packs, get the window to the scaffold, and then fit them. The image on the right is our robot trials done in partnership with the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre to fit a window in a hole, so we can identify the window, pick the window up with a vacuum gripper, place it in a hole, fix it around the fire battens around the outside, so we know it's exactly fitted as it should be. It's got little brackets that make it square and plumb in the aperture. It's got a little clip sill at the bottom, and that window, as you can see, is fitted in 1 minute and 14 seconds in the factory. That robot is capable of fitting any window up to 2.7 meters wide and up to 1.8 meters high, up to 115 kilograms in weight. So you can see the image on the left, the guys are still going on it here. Our studies have deduced that it takes two skilled carpenters, collectively 25 minutes when you actually take in the whole process of offloading a window, getting them to a site, getting to the plot, coordinating the plot, putting them into the hole, squaring them, plumbing them up, fitting the fire stops if they're not already pre-fitted. The actual fitting of the window here, as you can see in a minute, is almost twice that time. So it's a good example of productivity benefits. It's a good example of where we can free up tradespeople, skilled tradespeople, to do other things on the site, and we can transfer that work into the factory to be more efficient and then deliver the whole component as a finished wall with a window pre-fitted in it, so it's already in its finished place. Less storage on site, less movement, less manual handling, and we expect to be about £15 a window cheaper to install. In addition, we've been looking at standardisation and undertaking detailed standardisation studies. So looking at the influencing factors that affect standardisation, looking at mapping these and analysing them, engagement with suppliers, and then coming up with some solutions. We've focused on 4 key areas: windows and doors, stairs, wet rooms and service zones. The image in the sort of second in from the left is the mapping of different coloured bubbles for the different sizes of windows across the 3 developers, Stewart Homes, Barratt's and London and Quadrant. And you can see there's a potential to coalesce round about where the colours overlap, round about common window sizes, and where we've got outlier windows, and where there is opportunity to standardise the size of the aperture, not necessarily the configuration of the window, but the size of the aperture. And that allows us then to engage with the supply chain, somebody like Uracell in this case, but many other PVC window manufacturers or timber-based ones, where we can start to have standardised windows delivered in modules to the factory, fed to the robot that then fits the window in a more efficient way. And we can start to drive commercial benefits from having a sort of range of standard window components that can be fitted very efficiently into our panels. So the last few slides, looking at stairs in a similar way, standard components for stair modules. I'm particularly interested on standardization of wet rooms in housing design. So the image in the top left is what we're calling a product family. These are essentially standardized bathroom and ensuite modules that could be used for can be used for residential purposes. We've developed 4 basic modules for a bathroom, 4 for an ensuite. That would cater for 80% of the Stewart, L&Q and Barrett's house type range. And you can see the image on the right is where we've actually overlaid a standard module onto a current house design to show how you could get that module fitted into the home. So you can imagine from the images early on with a fast shell going up without scaffolding, roofs already tiled, if you are able to drop in a couple of wet rooms like a bathroom and an ensuite at the same time, 80% of the material and work content would be done on site. You still need to brick the house up, so the external cladding. Our target build time from EPC is about 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. Currently a masonry house is near 24 to 28 weeks. And you're taking a lot of improving your quality, etc., by doing that. There is still some challenges with the pod and panel type approach, but that's one of the longer term strategies we're looking at in terms of interface with the superstructure, floor areas, fire protection, service connections, etc., and also the commercialization of that. But if we can pool our volumes together, we see the opportunity to potentially engage with suppliers to scale up, standardized solutions that would be appropriate for each of the developers to use and maybe for the industry to use beyond AIMCH. So that's the next piece of the jigsaw, is essentially engaging on these product families, engaging with suppliers through a sandpit process. We're working with the Construction Products Association. There'll be calls going out to members of the CPA to provide potential suppliers and solutions who would want to engage us on some of these product families and low carbon technologies we're looking for, and then to configure future housing ranges, what we're calling pattern books of industrialised housing that can be produced at scale and offered through the project, and also as a bit of a case study and example for other developers who maybe want to use that sort of concepts going forward. Last couple of slides. As everything we've mentioned, commercial viability is critical. You can imagine this is industry-led R&D, and it's all about making sure we can actually commercialize these things. So during the 2 years so far, we have achieved firm data on the actual cost for masonry, open panel timber frame, closed panel timber frame, and other systems. We know the price point for that. We are close on many of those solutions as we speak. Further work will be going forward. We've got them by house type. We've been able to look at the regional variances and the different labour rates that affect on a regional basis, whether you're working in the north of England or whether you're working in the southwest or whether you're working in the southeast. So we've got sort of standard build cost profiles for all of those at the moment, and through the next year of the project we'll be looking to effectively evaluate and commercialize those benefits and scaling them up with the suppliers, and looking also at the desktop studies of future investments in manufacturing and how that can help reduce cost. The last piece, for those interested in finding out more about the project, I would recommend you go to the website, aimch.co.uk. Over the course of the next couple of months, there'll be quite a lot of new content going on there, including the dissemination of the future factory work. We've been looking at ERP systems, which I've not spoken about today, but digital business systems. Some of the productivity studies are coming through. We've also been, obviously, an event like today, disseminate a lot of our learning and communicating some of the work that's been going on. We were part of the Financial Times Future of Housing last year during the COVID lockdown. We've had our own halfway industry webinar, which was, I think, attended by 350 people. And we're also engaged with Homes England, and they have got their MMC sites, which are currently being monitored. So we've been working together on making sure our monitoring protocols that we've been using are considered and aligned with the MMC monitoring protocols that Homes England are doing for their MMC evaluations on the live sites that are now coming through their pipeline. So that's me, everybody. As I say, aimch.co.uk is a good source for all our material. Some nice little videos on there. There'll be some fly-throughs of future factories for those that are interested on the manufacturing aspects. And there'll be further information available on the site construction techniques that we've been using. So thank you for listening to me. I'll hand back to Andrew to then take us through the poll.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Much appreciated, and good to see that progress is still going strong. And I'm sure once we come to the end of this project, the results will be really useful in terms of housing going forward. What I'm going to do now is ask Howard just to take us through the survey. We're going to ask you, ladies and gents, to go to slido.com with the reference you can see on the left of your screen, and then take part in this survey, which, Howard, would you like to take people through this, please?
Yep, thanks very much, Andrew. Yes, if you're not already on Slido, please use the QR reader or go to slido.com and enter the hash and the thing. We'll give you a moment. Some of you are already on Slido because we're beginning to get questions coming through, which is great. I think you'll find that there may be questions that come out of this. So let's put the first question up, please, Abraham. We've got a raised hand from Steve. Okay. Steve, do you want to ask something? I'll open you up. Steve seems to have gone from here now, so
I'd whip through the questions, Howard.
yeah. So okay, so let's go to the questions. How likely is MMC to become a mainstream solution for house building? So when you look at Slido poll on your machine, you will now find that you've got a score of 1 to 10. So please take a moment to give your view on that. As you can see in the top right-hand corner, 4 people have given their views on that at the moment. Okay, we'll just go a little bit more. With over 60 people, well, in fact, over 70 people in, we should be able to get more than 8 people's views, hopefully. Okay, it's beginning to rattle now, that's good. Okay, you can still carry on answering this question whilst we move on to the next one. What time scale do you think digital working and BIM will be the new normal? So far, 16 people have answered that. So it'd be great if we could get this number up to at least 30, which would represent 50% of the audience. So please keep answering the questions. The next one is an interesting one in the sense of here, rank in order. So please bear in mind when you look at this question to rank in order. Getting up to 20 on this question, which is good.
It would be good, ladies and gentlemen, if we could take that figure way up beyond 50. There's many of you in the room not participating at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. So if you have got your phones with you, please do go onto Slido and participate in this poll, which will keep open, I think, Howard, for a little bit longer whilst we ask some questions of Stuart.
Well, we've got a question here, which I think I'd find quite interesting. What is LGSF?
Well, I think I've just posted it there. It's a light gauge steel frame.
Right. Okay.
So steel frame system for low-rise housing. Yeah.
Super. We're getting 28 now, Andrew.
Okay. Yeah, it's exciting.
Well, these are, aren't they?
I know. No, the future is exciting, joking apart. I think what Stewart's doing with the AIMCH team is going to revolutionise the housing industry. So is that the last question?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. In which case, I think what we'll do, while we give people a chance to fill that survey out a little bit more, we're up to 40 now, we're on a roll.
Yeah, we're doing
Stuart,
well.
I've got a few questions that are beginning to come in. So the first one I've got here from Rob Lamb. How is the commercial viability assessment taking account of the likely increasing cost of traditional build to meet the future home standard?
Well, it's a good question. You know, Barrett's are leading on this. They've got their commercial team working on this. I'm sure they will have a very accurate figure of the current cost through their standard build costs, and also looking at the future cost of masonry. So we are forecasting how that cost trajectory goes, relevant to the cost trajectory of the panelised MMC systems. So we'd like to think that the material costs will increase, likely, maybe because of Brexit and other factors impacting on the market. Labour costs in site are going up, particularly for certain trades, wet trades, brickwork trades, etc. And therefore, the cost of investment in factories will cost you as well. So the sort of tipping point to get to a cheaper solution will be looking at all of that to say that if you can reduce your factory costs through more volume, more standardization and more automation, then that gets to a point where it's actually cheaper than continually having to pay more for a limited pool of workers on a building site, which will be the case going forward. We have less trades, we have less skilled operatives. We need them to be more efficient. We need them to work longer in their lifespans, but ultimately that the labour costs are going up at the moment. And I think at the moment
Sorry, Stuart, go on. Sorry.
To add into that, I think at the moment, we've been, as an industry, house building's been very fortunate during the pandemic that we've been continue to work. And actually the demand for housing is quite strong at the moment. So, good time to buy a house because, you've got Help to Buy, you've got the stamp duty relief, you've got a lot of good things going at low mortgage rates. So it's a good time. A lot of people are looking to buy a house because they realise they're going to be home working as well. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing in the market is the labour rates for going up just because of supply and demand for housing is high. House builders are capturing that wave, shall we say. But clearly the subcontractors and those got limited resources are able to, name their price. And that's something we think we can manage better through some of the solutions at AIMCH.
I think what's interesting for me, Stuart, with regard to the future home standard in particular, there was initial sort of response given, wasn't there, which has had a lot of lobbyists having a go at it because initially they seem to be watering down the fabric first approach. But they're now rowing back on that, aren't they, I believe?
Yeah, I think, there will be a combination of having a good high performance fabric. I don't think we'll ever get to quite the passive house. There'll be a push towards that, but in reality, we will be a very good fabric, and the tipping point for that AIMCH is already looking at where we believe that is in terms of U values, air tightness, and thermal bridging. And we're looking at building a good fabric. We're going to have to bolt on new technologies. So whether it's PV and battery storage and heat pumps, which is the likely outcomes. We're taking gas boilers out, as we all know. COP26 will drive everybody towards this over the course of the next 6 or 9 months as we lead to COP26 in Glasgow, which is the big environmental forum. The world's eyes will be on us. So we are firmly believing that the landscape's changing a little bit, and that net zero carbon will be a driver, and certainly some of the bigger developers are actively looking at this now as saying, look, this is going to happen. We just need to make it happen now.
Yeah. So another question then, Stuart, for you from Patrick Hannay: is the zip detail visible externally or simply hidden internally?
Well, it's a good question, but yes, it's totally visible externally. so that the modular people who developed the roof technology have come up with an approved NHBC detail for where you've got the lap detail between the membranes and the tile battens, etc. And they've got a detail that's good for that. So that detail is entirely, you wouldn't see it there. You might see a joint in the fascia line. If you were to go up 2 stories and look at it, you might see a joint in your soffit line. But at the high level on the ground floor, I doubt you'd know the difference. And there is actually a detail at the back that zips it up, so there's no water ingress or things like that to concern yourself about. But that is one of the actually most challenging details about the whole thing. You know, actually making the modules okay, but zipping them together is actually pretty difficult.
Okay, I've got an anonymous question here. What is the it's moved on my what is the average time from inquiry to design sign off, and how long from sign off to delivery on site?
Well, it's an interesting one. I mean, I would say if we're looking at my sort of specialisms, timber-based systems, so we'd be typically looking for a bespoke design, 12-week lead-in time from getting a commitment from a customer to getting a product on site. In terms of on build, we can certainly have a superstructure, whether it's a terrace block or a semi or a pier, easily within a week. And as I say, depending on the technology you're using, you can get wind and watertight on a day. The actual build time for the house currently is probably about 16 weeks from foundation upwards. AIMCH is trying to achieve 10 weeks at the moment. A masonry build is nearer 28 weeks at the moment, just to give you a bit of a benchmark against that. So already half the time. One of the benefits of AIMCH is I talked about standardization and pattern books. So, if we have sort of got predetermined designs, or you've got solutions which can be configured, so clad with different materials, so we're not compromising the quality of design, we're not compromising the building better, building beautiful campaign, or the placemaking agenda. We're creating fabulous communities, but they can be clad and configured to suit that's appropriate to that, but having the same chassis of the house on the inside. And if using a standard component, that lead time can come down to as little as 4 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Rob Lamb. Is there more detail available on learning to date of the approach to scaffoldless erection?
That is intellectual property on that one, I would suggest. So obviously innovation project, and we developed that solution there that's been commercialized through the project. There's nothing available on the website to see that. We are engaging with a number of sort of suppliers of different systems. You will need an edge protection system, clearly, when you're doing that. So, you can talk about these things. It's one of the sort of IP solutions we're looking to exploit going forward. So we might have maybe first mover advantage, as they say, on that. But then hopefully, as others see these things being built, others will follow suit, and quickly thereafter the industry can move in that direction. Still a little bit more challenges on that. So some of the house types, where you've got terraces, you've got steps and staggers, we still have to come up with solutions for. But yeah, we have been able to build homes without scaffolding for at least the period of putting the superstructure of the timber frame or the shell up. You still need the scaffolding to come along and then put the brickwork up, assuming you're using a brick cladding system.
Okay, Stuart, we'll have 3 or 4 more questions for the time being. Then I'm going to hand over to Howard to take us through the survey results, which I'm sure you'd like to comment upon. So an interesting question here from Chris Kunit. How automated do you think house building can become? Do you think we will ever get to the level of automation seen in the automotive industry?
I think in the factory environment, yes. We've got a future fly through of an automated production line that's got robots on it. That is actually the first automated robotic line in the world that's been developed through this project. And we're looking to commercialize and develop that going forward. So we are definitely leading the way in some of these automation things. Do I ever see a robot and automation on the building site? No, I don't. I think what will happen is we'll displace that work into the factory where we can automate it efficiently, and then assemble things more efficient on site through assembly processes rather than actual craft and trade processes. Not everything can be automated. So, you know, some components in a house will always be manually assembled, be that on site or in the factory. So, you know, gable panels, which are every triangle is a different one. So quite often they're more efficient to be done using manual benches in the factory than it would be to try and automate that. So working with MTC, we've been able to identify where the automation benefits come and where the robotics benefits come as well, because you know nobody's using robots in manufacturing for homes at the moment. This is kind of a game changer, and we'd be first to market with that type of solution. You know, we are essentially developing a world-leading manufacturing process.
Okay, interesting question from Greg Slater, and this refers back to the Future Home Standard. Are you considering embodied carbon, despite this not being a factor in the Future Home Standard? I believe that part of the lobbying that's going on at the moment on the first release is to try and get it included. But anyway, what's your view on that, Stuart?
Yeah, we've got a dedicated work stream looking at embodied carbon for that specific reason. We're also looking at whole life cost of MMC systems versus traditional systems. So we're not just looking at capital cost, we're also looking at whole life cost, which is clearly of interest to asset managers within housing associations, and they take a different view. But on the embodied carbon, we have commissioned our partners Verco. They are currently doing embodied carbon systems checks on and assessments on masonry, large format block, open panel timber frame, closed panel timber frame, and light gauge steel. So we'll have the different construction methods. Carbon, early winner, as you probably expect, is timber with 40% reduction in embodied carbon over any other materials, and is fully renewable. In addition to that, we're then looking at 4 house types. So both to current regs, which is a 31% hike coming in October, and also to a net zero carbon home in the future, including some of the technologies that would come into play, such as heat pumps, etc., which could be made maybe overseas and brought into the UK market. So yeah, we're looking at this very strongly. We're also looking at sequestration of timber. We've been working with AIMCH's recommendations on the potential future regulatory review of embodied carbon, and looking at the different construction materials, where we can, maybe look at some of that things where some of the low carbon materials that are being used through the project, have clear benefits in terms of corporate compliance, in terms of reducing their carbon footprint.
The next one I've got is from Graham on my list. Is there a higher upfront cost, and is this the barrier to uptake in terms of cash flow and funding? They're used to 60 days rather than, say, 50% in advance.
Yeah, I think the upfront cost is probably more difficult for modular fabricators. So, when you're doing a lot in a factory, you have to pay upfront for that. So therefore, the cash flow is different. On the panelised systems, we are looking at cash flow, but in the whole, the cash flow investment is less because it's a lower proportion of the total build, albeit you do need to pay for your panelised system either at the gate or quite often once installed. So quite often it's 30 days after installation as opposed to initially upfront. But on the whole, the cash cycle is offset by the saving in development costs through prelims, etc., your sales and operating build costs, what's known as SOBS costs in the world of house building, and also your development interest costs. So the cash profile changes, but we think it's a positive cash to cash cycle, which is a benefit for MMC. Okay.
One more question then, please, Abraham, if you could put up, and then we're going to go on to the survey. This goes back to the scaffold-free approach. As part of the scaffold-free approach, are you investigating external finishes as part of the OSM in the panelised system?
We will be. We've used brick cladding at the moment because it's kind of the go-to conventional method, shall we say. And we are interested in it. So through these sandpit processes that I discussed and the call to Construction Product Association, we are interested in cladding systems. As part of this project, Stewart Dalgarno Group are doing a BS 8414 test with a lightweight cladding system, a timber wall construction, where we've got a fireproof timber frame system and a A1, A2 cladding system direct onto it. So again, we're aware that in the future we can't increase our building footprint and our wall thickness by putting 100 mil of brick and 50 cavity around every home we build. So if we can come up with thinner solutions that are robust both from a fire point of view and a thermal point of view, longevity point of view, then we're definitely interested in looking at that, and would be quite keen to work with suppliers who could provide potentially site cladding system initially, followed by the potential for that to be factory fitted probably sometime 5 to 10 years down the pipeline.
Okay, lovely job. Now then, I'm going to hand over to Howard to take us through the survey results, which I'm sure you'll want to comment upon, Stuart. But before I do that, the exciting news I have for you is that we've teamed up with an organisation called MyPro Plus, and this will allow you to download CPD certificates now for all these webinars going forward. So if you are a professional that requires CPD certification to keep records, I've just put a link in the chat box. There's a link where you need to sign up, and also there's a CPD code which I've put in the chat box. So it will be your responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, to download your own CPD certificate for today's webinar. But the link is in the chat box. Over to you, Howard.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, let's put the first result up on the screen, please, Abraham, from the poll. So we got 47 people, so we got over 50%, which wasn't too bad. So there you go, Stuart. How likely is MMC to become a mainstream solution for house building? Average score of 7.5, with 35% thinking that that's scoring at 8. So any comments you'd like to make on that?
Well, I'm encouraging to see that it's a positive sort of outlook towards supporting MMC. I think we're going to need it as a range of solutions. I don't think there's one perfect fit. There'll be some that are probably more used than others. Panelized systems, traditional systems will still be available and used in the marketplace. Certainly, the view of the AIMCH partners is, this is part of their core business strategies going forward, particularly Barrett's, who've now invested in Oregon timber frame to look at doing more of that. L&Q, who are actively looking at transferring their construction methods into 100% MMC as part of their MMC journey. So I think, we're beginning to see a movement there, and I'm encouraged to see the results being so positive towards it, which is good. Albeit, we know that some people will always stick with brick and block. That's just the way it is.
Thanks very much, Abraham. Shall we have the next question? Oh, interesting. What timescale do you think digital work in BIM will be the new normal? 5 to 7 years was what people are thinking there, Stuart. 43%.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that, and I think that's quite a good outlook. We've been doing a fair bit of work through this project, looking at digitization and doing Revit models and such like a housing, and just to adopt that software and to go through the learning curve and everything you need to do. One of the interesting things we've done is a guide to creating a BIM manual for housing. So that will be downloadable on the website. It gives you a framework for those who are interested in moving towards building information and modeling, BIM, and the adoption of the 3D modeling tools. And yeah, you're on a minimum 5-year journey to go through that process. And you need a lot of stamina and leadership and support, and to make sure you transition from paper-based 2D information that we push about everybody to a fully 3D collaborative integrated models in the future, which is where we'll end up. But 5 to 7 feels about right to me.
Okay, I see Andrew's posted a view. He said, I've been involved in BIM for housing for over 7 years, and getting people to buy in is like plaiting fog. Okay, let's have the next question then. Thanks very much. So we'll have to go to 2 screens here. So what building and OSM solutions are likely to be viable mainstream solutions? Rank in order most likely to least. So Stuart, timber frame seems to be a big winner here.
Well, I'm encouraged to hear that. Obviously, being a sort of timber-based man at heart, and closed panel systems, I think, is a new norm from Homes England point of view. Yeah, timber frame is the most viable solution, I think, on the market now. In Scotland, everything's built in timber frame, 82%. It's not doing it because it costs us more, we're doing it because it's efficient and it costs us less. And I think there's a growing demand for it in the UK. I think it will be one of the main forms for low-rise developments up to 4 stories. Closed panel, I think, will emerge where you insulate it and you do more in the factory. So I think that could be the next sort of uptake. We know that Homes England are now saying that even timber frame, it's not even considered an AIMCH or an offsite now. It's just a traditional method. So they're pushing for the industry, the timber frame industry, to do more in the factory and build on that sort of good points. The other ones, I'm sure, will all have their place in the marketplace. Modular is probably one that is most attractive. We hear a lot of noise in the marketplace about investments in modular as well, and I'm sure they'll have their place in the market. I think masonry will still always be there. You know, I can't see anybody moving too much away from masonry, and I think it will be part of the solution. Light gauge steel frame and concrete, because of maybe the carbon agenda and the embody agenda may be more difficult for them, and I guess they'll be more specialist on high rise and the other sort of more non-resi type buildings where they really come into their own.
Well, thanks very much for answering the questions on those, Stuart. I'm going to hand back now to Andrew because there are more questions. Just to cover one point, for those of you who would like to see these results or whatever, they will be posted onto Leaders Meet, and they'll also go on to CAEW website in time. So by next week, you'll be able to download these, and please feel free to go there information. We're going to open the feedback survey in a minute, so if you want to start doing that, that's fine. We'll keep it open till 1:30, so as long as you're into Slido, you don't have to do it now. So back to Andrew and a few more questions.
Thanks, Howard. Stuart, we got 6 minutes and we've got 6 questions, so if we could rattle through them,
okay,
that would be appreciated. So historically, there was a reluctance from financial institutions to invest. Is this resolved?
I believe so. I mean, we're working with the RICS are a part of the stakeholder group. Used to be the Association of British Insurers and the lending fraternities. They're more favourable to panelised systems and near-to-market solutions. You know, you can imagine with Barrett's or L&Q or Stewart Mill, we don't want to use stuff you can't get a mortgage or get assurance on. So it's fundamental to our solutions that we have these in place. And for the solutions we're looking at, we have that in place.
Okay, thank you. Patrick Hannay again. Haven't they been doing drop-in modular wet rooms in offices for a decade or more?
Absolutely.
Are you linked to their expertise and experience?
Absolutely right. Bob on. I know from a fact that we quite often do it in hotels and student accommodation where you've got the timber frame going up or the panelised system going up and dropping the modules in. Never really been done at scale and en masse for low-rise residential because every bathroom is different. I'll give you one example. Stewart Mill Homes, 32 house types in our standard range, building about 1,000 units a year, and we've 93 different bathroom configurations. Every one is different. Every one is craft built on site. If I went to an MMC supplier now and asked them to do 93 modules to make 1,000 modules of 93 different flavours, he would just laugh at me and tell me to go away. That's where the standardization comes. That's where the benefits comes. That's where the scale comes. We are already through the call. We are interested and we want to speak to pod manufacturers through the work we're doing with Construction Products Association to get people invited into that, such as Elements Europe, such as Offsite Solutions, and any pod manufacturer out there. We are interested in open.
Stuart, that leads in nicely to the next question. How easy will it be for future householders to modernise bathroom and kitchen fittings? Is this taken into consideration in the design and manufacture process?
It's a key thing for us to make sure that we have these things. If you're looking at a bathroom pod, you know, there's lots of challenges yet to be resolved in making that for residential. One of the things we have done is we looked at all our standardised specifications between Stewart Mill, L&Q and that. So any toilet, any sanitary ware, any vanity unit, any door swing, any shower tray size, we can actually accommodate within our units. That means we've had to standardise to, a certain dimension. So typically the units are slightly bigger to give us that wriggle room that any fit out can go into one of our pods as part of that process there. Obviously, we'll need to work on the detailing of how these things are maintained going forward. And as part of the whole life costing work, we're looking at the cost implications of that, particularly for an affordable developer where there might be quite an expensive modification, and we don't want to incur, costs as a consequence of the asset management lifestyle. So we are looking at that through whole life costing work.
Okay, so we've got 3 more questions. If we could really whip through them, Stuart. Has there been any feedback from residents who live in these homes?
The simple answer, we sold the first ones. Residents moved in. Boris was actually there at the first part of it, the Barrett site.
Of course.
He was there. Yeah, they moved in now. We've not had any negative feedback. We're going to be monitoring the houses through normal practices within the first 2 years. We're not doing any post-occupancy evaluation per se, but we will be tracking these homes. They are being sold in the open marketplace, and through our normal customer care, we will get feedback.
Okay. Next one is anonymous. I'd like to hear more about the claim for simplification of construction methods. The video shows scaffolding used for masonry cladding and to fit roofs.
Yeah, so we're trying to design out scaffolding where we can. We'll still need it if you're putting a brick skin on the outside. If we were using a lightweight cladding system in the future, we could do it with moops, or we could do it with little machines, crawler machines round about it. We know that. We'll be looking to develop that. In terms of the lean construction, I think the video said it all to me. The factory fitted window, here's 2 guys just trying to stick it in a hole fairly inefficiently and probably difficult, and here's a robot doing it. There's a lean process if you ever saw one.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. One final question, which reads, with the potential to hear more about claim for, I've missed it here, long-term need for design becoming unnecessary, how do you see this impacting the architectural and structural engineering industries?
Well, I see it maximising their benefits. Architects are great at placemaking. They're great at doing the whole creativity piece in terms of the sense of place and the community and everything associated with that. I think the nuts and bolts of just the technical aspects of building a house can be done by the industrialisation. So again, we're looking at pattern books. It can be configured with a number of different cladding systems or finishes. So you're creating beautiful scenes in your street scene. And I would think, that's where the value comes from an architect. So, for example, some of the stuff we're looking at through our supply chain is that we offer under a license agreement these pattern books for free to use, so that an architect will still take that pattern book. They can then put their creativity and finish onto it and set it in the context of a development and do all the other work that they would normally do.
Okay, Stuart, perfect timing. It's exactly 1 o'clock. Ladies and gents in the audience, please do 2 things for me. First of all, please fill in the survey so that we can have some sort of recognition of what you thought of today. And also, please use the CPD code that I put in the chat room. You'll need to go to a link and then you put the code in and you can download a certificate. Can I now, Stuart, thank you once again for giving up your valuable time. Very interesting, I'm sure, for the audience. Thank you, as always, to Howard and the team at Leaders Meets for hosting. Next week, we're inviting Maria Dunn back from Birmingham City Council. We're going to be looking at the net zero agenda, and in particular, what Birmingham City Council are doing as they target a net zero position in 2030. So if sustainability is a big issue for you, I look forward to seeing you all again next Friday at midday. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.